Hey guys, hope you're all doing amazing tonight. So we have a few guests on tonight. We've got Mike, Remy, and I think Chris is going to join us in a couple minutes. And we are going to talk some Canadian homesteading. We got a bunch of questions and a bunch of stuff we want to go over. And we'll probably get into some other stuff later as well. Have a little free-for-all discussion about some different stuff. So thank you all so much for joining us. If we don't acknowledge you when you come into the chat, we're sorry. We'll probably get caught up in a little bit of a discussion. But I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and we'll try and acknowledge you as you come in. So, Mike, Remy, welcome. Hope you guys had an amazing day today.
Yeah, it was nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Productive as always.
Yeah. Awesome. You enjoying the deep freeze here, or have you guys had that deep freeze that we're having here?
Yeah, it's pretty cold here also. It's getting better. It got better today, but yeah, we are in the minus 30s for sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty nice out today. It didn't seem that cold.
Today was a little better. We've been dipping down to like minus 26, minus 27, 28 in the mornings. So
I didn't check. I think it was more like minus 16 or something today. Felt like spring.
Yeah. I know we got up above minus 10, so that was really nice, but it hasn't stopped snowing here either for the last little while. So I've been on the tractor, snow blowing, getting everything cleared out.
Nice.
Yeah. I know the snow keeps just kind of flying right around us. It hasn't landed much here. So it'll snow quite often, but it's just little bits here and there, not enough to really accumulate.
Nice.
Okay.
Looking for a neighbor. I hate snow so much.
There's 300 acres for sale across the street.
Oof. I wish.
Nice. It's so hard to find any property. I was just debating with everything going on that, take a look out Nova Scotia, Alberta, see if there's anything out there. And prices are astronomical right now for anything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen an acre go for like $20-something thousand around here. It's crazy.
Oh,
just one acre.
It's just brutal. Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
There he is. Chris, welcome.
Hello. How are you guys all tonight?
Doing amazing.
Doing good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think everyone's got a drink going on and ready to talk and argue and debate and, all the good stuff.
Do what you do around a round table.
Exactly. So you guys haven't had much snow down where you are, or?
We get a little bit of snow and then it melts, and then we get a little bit more snow and then it partially melts and goes to ice. We're supposed to be getting some snow, I think, tonight. It was snowing a little bit, but started this morning. It was raining, and then it sort of gradually changed to a little bit of light snow over the day. So we'll see what tomorrow morning brings.
Hopefully you don't have to shovel or plow or snow blow too much.
We've got the snowblower fixed now, so I'm guessing we probably won't. When it's not working, that's when you need to do it. And then
that's always the way. Yeah, exactly. So just want to take a minute and say hello to a few friends. Brenda Baker, Gardner Josh, Bramble Hill Homestead, Back to Basics, The Mudbrooker, Living a Rogue Life. Who else did I see? Old Nance, Fugate Farms, T-Hand 141, Michael Sharp, Honey Badger's Homestead. Welcome, everybody. Glad you could join us tonight. Hope you're all doing well. And there's a little homestead by the beach. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see
So-
everybody in here tonight.
Yeah. So what I figure is, I know Chris and I were discussing this when I went and visited, and what I'd like to do, and I'm sure everyone else would probably like to do as well, is we figure if we could get probably a roundtable discussion going with different people and send it around to different channels. So each channel has one night sort of thing, doing like a roundtable discussion on different topics. It would be awesome to be able to get that started for basically us here in Canada, because I think a lot of the stuff we see is US based. So if we could get some more Canadian stuff going, that'd be awesome. And we'll share it around and get everyone contributing. So what I'd like to do probably tonight is, I've got a whole bunch of questions go through. We'll probably go, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, and then open it up to other questions in that after. If you have a question or a comment, probably throw it in capitals so we can see it, and we'll get you involved in the conversation. So, first question, tough one. All right, you guys, what is the biggest problem for you that you face on your homestead? What is the main thing that causes you concern?
Who wants to start? Yeah, you mean beside the snow? No. If
Could
I
be
may,
snow.
yeah, it's a big issue here anyway. For me was, I mean, I still remember that morning I was on vacation in the summer. For people who follow me, I think it was on July 6th. I have the papers right beside me. Someone from the Service Commission came over to tell me that there was a complaint against me, and I wasn't allowed to have chickens and my pigs. The trouble with that was, not only did I just buy for like $10,000 worth of stuff, I mean, a chicken plucker, the fencing, the T-poles and all that, but I mean, the animals were already here. What was I supposed to do? I mean, I ended up losing the 2 pigs for like bear bait, basically. There was no way I could sell them. There was no way I could raise them anywhere else at the time. I was kind of stuck in a corner where I had to choose between my animals. I mean, it was food for my family for the winter, and I managed to negotiate to keep the chickens for the time being. But I mean, it certainly brought me down to my knees, and I mean, I've struggled a lot with that in the last couple of months. My house is for sale, but I'm trying to, I have a friend that has a land not too far from here that he's allowed to have animals, and I'm trying to move everything over there and build something there with him. So for me, that'd be it.
Yeah, that's a tough one, eh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of tough wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
Especially because,
No kidding.
like you said, you were able to keep some of them, but then you've got to shift them around, and yeah.
I lost a lot of hegglers also. I mean, I was at the point where I had a lot of dual purpose birds, and I was getting ready to get like self-sustainable with the chickens. I had 2 incubators, was running full time, and then I just had to get rid of everything. So yeah.
Are you pretty close to town right now, or?
I'm in the middle of, well, not even in the middle of a village. I'm in a village, and I'm like at the edge there. I'm 20 minutes away from the city, the closest city. And I mean, across the street from me, a guy has a farm with horses, and 2 minutes that way, there's a big farm with all kind of animals. It's just a matter of exactly the position I'm at. Houses in my street are not allowed to have animals except for the ones, they call that the grandfather law. Whoever had animals before
Yeah.
2012, and I wasn't able to prove that I had animals before then. I started having chicken in 2011, in the spring of 2011, but I can't prove it. So I was able to keep they allow me to keep 4 chickens, 4 layers, because they say that this should be enough to sustain a family. But I have a family of 7, so 4 chickens is it's not even in, like, it doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's just silliness.
Yeah.
I know the biggest problem I face out here is like where I'm placing everything, because I'm constantly trying to move stuff around to get things that, it moves or works a little bit better. It's a little more streamlined. I'm constantly trying to innovate, and like I find one thing that doesn't work and I'll build a different goat door or something else, have to fix something here or there. And now that we've moved, it's a matter of trying to get everything in place and in line. So I find the biggest issue for me has been just where I can put things, where I can get to things, getting things to work properly. I mean, I stumbled on like getting the chickens to lay all year long just because I double tarped them in when I was over at the other place. And I used vapor barrier and just wrapped it around the whole coop twice. And it not only kept in warmth, but it created a greenhouse effect inside. So they had plenty of light and plenty of warmth. Sometimes it was like 20 degrees in there in the middle of winter because the sun was just beating through. But
Did they go outside at all
that was
during that time?
Oh yeah, I would go out in
Okay.
the day and I'd open up the door and let them out and stuff like that, and it would air out everything. I had proper ventilation throughout the chicken coop. It's just a matter of dumb luck, honestly. I did a little bit of looking to see, what type of coops were out there, and then built a chicken run, and then just wanted to, keep the chicken run, operational all year round. And so during the winter, I would just throw up the greenhouse plastic over top of it. So I
Nice.
know currently the main issue I'm having is like getting water for everything, because we're living in a trailer inside of a barn, and the ground froze before I could get the well drilled and all the pipes run. So I've got basically a hose system and a siphon system going on. And so that's just kind of where I am with that. But I mean, the wood stove out here keeps the garage, probably around 5 degrees, between 5 and 10 degrees. So it's fairly nice inside the cabin.
Water's a big issue, I think, for a lot of us. Like, I go out every day and fill up the rabbits and the chickens, get the ice out and fill that up. I really need to figure something out for those. The cows, I've got the hot water, the heater inside their trough, but the chickens and the rabbits are a different story. How about yourself, Chris? What do you think is your biggest issue that you face?
Probably, I'm going to say 2. One, probably the universal that we actually all face, whether we're homesteading or not, is time.
Yeah.
And how availability of time isn't always there at the times of year when you need it the most. I think that's a huge challenge, right? Because right now there is a bit more time, but you also can't do a lot of the things that you need to do. And when the conditions are right to do those things, there's less time for a variety of reasons. So I think that's definitely a universal.
I'd have to agree with you on that. Our
yeah.
winter basically gets shut down due to the amount of snow and the cold. And, we can't put in fences. We can't build anything. It's hard to cut trees because of the deep snow. So for us, it's time would be the big one there. Yeah.
And in the winter, we also have the shorter days, which is a little bit problematic for me anyway.
Yeah.
The nice part
and
is
your
they're
second
starting
one?
to get longer, but the other one is very animal specific, but feed. And I think that comes from trying to be more quote unquote sustainable at the same time that feed costs and stuff are going up. It's, we've gone through quite I'm not going to say downsizing, but a restructuring of how we're doing things and what we're raising on that side. But we've still got to take it further, and it's trying to figure that out. That's kind of an emerging one, I guess, right now. That we went to the feed store recently, and some items have remained pretty much the same, and others have gone up like quite substantial in a very short period of time. And I think that's going to be a reoccurring thing that will creep into a lot of other aspects. It's like foreshadowing what's to
I think
come.
we mentioned it in the one live too that we were talking about, where it in some cases it might be almost cheaper to get rid of the animals for the winter. Say, for instance, for us, for our rabbits, to get rid of them, so we're not looking after them, we're not buying feed, be less headaches, less costs, and then repurchase in the spring when we want to start breeding again. It's that fine line.
Yeah, it's, you can go really far with that discussion of how dependent. What do you want to be dependent on? What do you want to not be dependent on? And figuring out what's the future going to be like for that. Because we've seen it with chickens, right? I know in our area, I mean, we don't buy chickens very often, or when we do, it's usually like a rooster or a trade kind of thing. But not this year that just passed, but the year 2020. Trying to remember the years here. A lot of people that ordered chicks and chickens exactly like that, they couldn't get them. So then you're stuck. You're kind of stuck, right, between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
It would be cheaper not to have the animals, but then.
But can you still get them when
Not
you need
safer.
them?
You want them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if something happens, what if there's no more because of a situation? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another big thing is like youth. I find that more often than not these days, I can't do quite as much as I used to be able to do, even though I think I should be able to.
My mind says yes. My body says no.
Yeah, I think it was you, Darren, the other day that said something like my body is like 60 years old, but my mind is like 20. That's how I feel most of the time. I want to do stuff, and then I start, and I'm like, oh, geez, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, Bridget likes bugging me about my old man noises when I sit down or get up or get out of bed.
I'm still sore from going up the mountain last Saturday. So,
ouch.
I always notice it with the bending down your knees.
Oh yeah, the cracks.
You know, it's not that bad. You notice it. Or when I was younger, jump out of the back of a truck. Oh, no big deal. Now it's like not a moving truck, but like a parked one. Used to be no big deal. Now it's kind of like, well, I got to think about that. Maybe I'll get it a little slower.
I noticed that, especially bent over gardening. That's when I'm really noticing it. It hurts. Yeah. All right, guys, here's one for you. If you could have one type of animal, one category of animal on your homestead, what would it be? So, for example, chickens, rabbits, pigs, cows, goats, sheep. What do you think your one choice would be?
I'd have to say chickens. It's like all purpose. They're cheap and easy. They're not hard to keep. They pretty much feed themselves all summer long. You're pretty easy on food, even in the winter. They supply breakfast, all the time. And then when they kind of move out of that phase, they provide stew. So it's like an all-purpose animal for me. It just kind of earns its keep. I think second, I might go for cows, but I've never had cows, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Mike on that one. Chickens is probably one of the cheapest animal to have. They're so easy to get, to reproduce themselves, and you can just put them in the garden. They'll till the garden for you, and they'll poop all over the place, scratch it out. They provide good compost for the garden, and then, like you said, you can eat them if they're not nice. If you get a rooster that's not nice, you can eat it. The eggs. It's crazy how expensive the eggs are at the store right now. So I'm allowed to keep a couple of chickens, but if I could, I would definitely have more. Definitely.
That's a good point with the gardening. I've seen that done on a couple other channels, and it's one of the things I want to try and put into practice around here. Is I want to build a little screened in hoop house or whatever over the raised beds and stuff like that, and really get the chickens working for me. And that's what we've been focusing on a lot here too, is trying to get the animals to really work on the farm rather than just we're using them for milk or for eggs and stuff, right? That's a good point.
Yeah.
They're doing their own thing. It's not like we're forcing them to do anything. That's what they do by default. I mean, they're chickens, so they scratch and they eat. That's all they do all day.
Yep.
So might as well use it to our advantage.
Yeah, exactly. How about
What
yourself,
about you,
Chris?
Chris?
What would you go for?
Oh boy. I probably would say right off the bat, I don't know if there is any like one universally the best period. And I think it's because when you look at animals and you look at like what we get from them, I mean, meat's a big one for a lot of people, but then you have eggs and milk are kind of like the three primary products, right? But birds don't give you milk and mammals don't give you eggs. So I think I would agree that chicken's probably number one.
What about the platypus?
Yeah, but you got harvested. That's a good point. Actually, there are others too. What is it? The echidnas. The echidnas and the platypus. You're right. You are right.
But have you ever tried to milk a platypus? Like, seriously?
I don't know how enjoyable that would be, to be honest.
No.
or how worth it that would be.
Yeah.
So I should restate it. You can't easily get milk and eggs out of the same animal. So I do think, because we talk about this a lot here, I think chicken is probably number one. That being said, the sheep are a really close second, only because there's a potential for the three products from them. But I would also say that the chickens are better because they fit into smaller spaces. So if you didn't have space, they're a better option. The sheep take more space, and that would probably be the negative. They're still very economical, but you have to have more space.
Good.
I'd have a question about that too, because I know a neighbor that had, I think they were emus. Were there? No, alpacas, and they had a lot of burrs on their land, and so they were constantly getting all these burrs in their wool and their fur or their hair, right? And do you have a lot of problems with that? Have you found that to be a hard issue, or?
Short answer is yes. We have a lot of birds kind of around the barn, and they're kind of a mixed blessing, because as you get into the late summer, they're an excellent rabbit food, like a cut it or pull it out, pick it, rabbit food, and then feed it. The rabbits love them. You just, the leaf, the stalk, but birds are biannual, right? So the first year, all you get is the nice rosette of leaves. And the second year you get the seed stalk. So we're kind of, it's a love-hate relationship. We don't have a lot of burrs elsewhere right now, but we have a lot around the barn. So we're trying to keep them from spreading as much as we can. But we do find with our Icelandic sheep, some of them, they all get them, they all get worked in, but it does depend a little bit. Like, they all have slightly different wool qualities. They're not all exact carbon copies. So some of them get quite covered in it, some of them not so bad. But there's other seeds too that, like Queen Anne's lace or the wild parsnip, because they're taller. So they're above the back of the sheep. So when they're going out in the fall, they bump it, hit it, and they all fall down into their back and then get down in. So they're kind of annoying too.
Okay. It's one of the animals that I considered out here, because I mean, you want to be as like you said, as self-sustainable as you can. Like, and many avenues of income is one of the biggest things that I've found that you need to have with a homestead. Um, and then then it becomes a balance of, like you said, time. How do you have time for all these different, projects, these animals, these, avenues of income? Like it's a struggle sometimes,
Oh,
but
exactly. And then it's figuring out like they all have their merit. You can look at
yeah,
everything. I'm going to pick on animals because they tend to take more time, more resources, more energy. But you can break them all down and say, well, this sounds great, and that sounds great, and this one sounds great, and right. But then when you start having a sum of the whole, trying to figure out what works for your property and your time and what you want out of it, like I'm going to reach over and grab something here. Teaser. We've been working on tanning some rabbit fur,
Nice.
for example.
Nice.
oh, cool.
But it's kind of one of those things. Like they're coming out quite nice. This is one we just did here. They're coming out pretty
That's
good.
awesome.
But so it's great, right? Because this is another product you can get
You
from
can sell.
rabbits.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
we're also kind of toying with it. Like this is our second method that we've used. This is the aluminum. Oh, I always get it wrong. Aluminum sulfate, I think it is. Method. We tried egg tanning. Egg tanning was one of those things, exactly like we were talking. It was time. You had to have it timed
Mhm.
right, or it doesn't work. Which, if you have that time, you can make it work. But if you get doing something else, it doesn't work. This method works a lot better. So when we did the egg tanning last year, I'm going to say we were a bit discouraged because we got 2 that were great, and then we did like 5 and they didn't go well, and we're just like, what are we doing wrong? And it's the time thing. This is working better, but then we have that same thing between the sheep and the rabbits. It's still a fiber. So we've got to figure out how do we want to use this. So it's a great experiment, but yeah, you've always got that balance.
Yeah. And that's a lot with homesteading is experimenting, finding what the easiest way is, what the most productive way is, so you can best utilize every ounce of your time. As
Keep improving
I
it.
find I constantly am like fixing something, or I get pulled away from one project because something else broke, or some animal got loose, or what have you. And so, yeah,
There's always something, always. And with a full-time job, I mean, you guys are lucky. Your wives or girlfriends are part of it. But I mean, mine, not that she doesn't want to help, but I mean, she's got Meniere disease, which caused her to be like it's some sort of vertigo where she can't really she can't look down and she can't do certain movements. So to have her help me with the garden is just something that's impossible. If I ask her to go help me with the animals, she has allergies with the hay, so she can't go in there. So I end up doing pretty much everything I do by myself, and I have to ham a little bit higher probably because I got 5 kids. So it's try to get as much food as possible in, but I still have a full-time job. So like Chris said, time is a big issue also.
Yeah.
But it's
All
fun.
right, guys. If you could change one aspect about your property, what would it be? The trees, the size, hills, water, soil? What
a running stream.
aspect
like
about your property would you change?
Yeah, I would say a nice flowing stream, almost to the point of a river. If I could institute actual hydro energy, and then being able to fish, even if I don't eat the fish, just to feed the animals, like an actual flowing stream or river would be amazing.
I'm right there
Like, we
with
do
you
have
on that
ponds
one.
around us, stuff like that, but that would be epic, I think.
I think the benefits from that, not only the power generation, but a water source. It kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in what they call like a land of 1,000 lakes, right? So there's water everywhere. And then to top it off, we did drill a well, and it turned out to be free flowing well, artesian. Thank you. Couldn't think of the word. One too many beers. So I've got a siphon system off for that, and I've got a whole plan to when I drill down in the summertime, when everything kind of thaws out, I want to have an overflow pipe, and I'm going to turn that into its own little pond, like just constantly flowing into it, and I'll move all the animals down that way so that they'll have constantly fresh water, and I won't have to water them anymore. So I mean, water is great having like a free flowing river, but a free flowing river that you could use for cooling off in the summer. You could feed the animal or water the animals, feed the animals, possibly generate hydroelectricity from. Like, there's so much to be said by placement like that. If you had a decent river, yeah, that's above and beyond. So,
Yeah, water is
what about you,
definitely.
Remy?
Um, I'd have to say location. Really, I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
My
Oh, yeah.
dad,
That's a
my
big
dad
one.
has a, yeah, my dad has a land not too far from here, so I have all what you wish you had. He has a little river on there, a couple of beaver dams. He has a water spring. I my plan is to go on there and build a little cabin at some point, just to go, clear my mind and go spend some time in the middle of the woods. He allows me to do it, like he doesn't mind, as long as I don't cut the wood, like all the trees there. He doesn't really care. It's just, again, the time to go and do it. But beside that, if I talk about my own property here, I mean, I think my soil is somewhat pretty good. The fact that it's a little hill and then stays straight and then it goes a hill again. We don't have water. I'm high up on the hill, so there's no way to get a flood where I am. Um, I mean, I have a bunch of apple trees on both sides. I think that on that aspect there, I'm pretty satisfied with the way things are going. But it's just neighbors. I thought they were far enough, but I guess not.
It's other factors that are beyond your property, basically.
Yeah, basically. That's why I'm saying if I could take my house, my land, like just the whole property, take it, move it somewhere else, be perfect. Be
Yeah.
amazing. But yes, that's impossible to do. But if I could find something similar to this place, I'd jump on it right away.
I guess mine would be, it's going to sound kind of funny at first, but our property, like we have a good amount of property, but it's a long and narrow property. And that has its own challenges because, like, fencing alone, right? It's easy. It's not easier. It's more economical, we'll say it that way, to fence a square than it is to fence a rectangle for the same area. So because we have to, and at this point, we're quite lucky because we have our channel. Our channel is complete, but getting that complete was kind of a much bigger job because it just felt like you were fencing to nowhere because you had to do like a long channel essentially to get the animals from point A to point B. So it's kind of a no issue now, I guess, but it almost would have been nicer to have a square property. But where we are, most of them aren't really, they're all weird shapes.
Nice. It doesn't show though on your videos. When I watch your videos, you can't really say that it's more rectangle shape. It's hard to say sometimes.
That's because we need a drone.
Eventually,
Keep telling him we need a drone.
eventually it'll happen because it's hard to visualize it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your place too, Darren, because right around your house you watch your videos and you can see it, but then you guys have more property, but it's hard to visualize it, right, when you haven't been there, for example.
Yeah. And over half our property is forest. So again, it's like, how do you kind of show what the shape is? How do you show the utilization of that? So yeah.
Yeah.
I hear
All
that
right.
a lot.
And
too.
speaking of that,
I got to interject for a second, Darren, because we didn't get your answers to the last couple questions.
for what I love on the property, I go with the stream as well. That for me would be a big one. We have an underground stream, but I think it's like 150, 200 feet underneath the property because it comes out on the cliff over at the end of our property.
Oh,
But if we
okay.
had a river going through here, then I
That'd be
know
nice.
I'd have an easier source of water if the power goes out. And I'm pretty sure I could run some sort of hydroelectric or a ram pump or something like that to be able to better utilize for power and hydration for the animals. So
Nice.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
there are other things I thought of, like hills. I'd really like some hills because we're pretty flat to be able to utilize for like cold cellar or sticking the greenhouse into the side of the hill, better soil, something like that. But for me, it's the water. The water's a big one. And on
Well, if
the
you want
talking the
hills, I've got
property
plenty for
size,
you.
what do you guys think is kind of the ideal property size for a homesteader?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a really
You
tough
know,
one.
it's
Because
I
I think
it
you know,
depends
too
more
small
on the quality of
can't
the
do
land.
enough. You go too big and you start becoming a commercial farm, or you can't utilize the property the way you want to. So for someone who wants to try and be as self-sufficient as possible, what kind of property size do you think is?
If you're talking about being as self-sufficient as possible, I have in mind 100 acres. It's big, it's a lot, and I include lots of wood on the perfect scenario here. The reason for that is you can hunt, you can cut your own firewood, and you can take all that wood and build whatever you need to build. I know you've watched one of my video, Darren, where I visited one of my homesteader friend that last summer. Um, what's her Christine, and she had she built a fence with the pines or spruce that she had on her property for her pigs, and everything was done like magnificently. It was just beautiful the way she did all of her things. Now she had much more wood that she wanted to get rid of, but if you have the 100 acres, you can decide basically what size you want to have your cows, your horses, your all your animals. You can cut the woods you want for boards, for a cabin if you want to build a cabin. And hopefully with 100 acres, chances are you're going to have a stream somewhere. You can fish, you can hunt, you can do pretty much whatever you want. I have just a little bit more than an acre on my property here, and I'm guessing I was able to bring in about, I'm guessing 1,000 pound of food last year alone. Of course, I had two moose, which were a little bit more than 400 pounds, and I've been foraging a little bit also, but I mean it's still doable to grow for a family of four, for example, on a quarter acre. So on an acre, it's easy to do for a whole family. It's just like once again have the time and the rights to do everything you need to do.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the 100 acres, especially for lumber and hunting, because we're on 13. And so my thought would be, 10 to 15 acres is really good because we can hunt. We can utilize all the trees that are on our property. But then I realized when you said that, we also have property that extends out the back of ours that is just forest and no one uses for anything. Like I think at some time it was used for lumber and then it goes out to a hydro line. But that's where our deer come from that we hunt on our property. So yeah, I guess if you had 10 to 15 acres in a smaller area, like with other people around, you might not have that same amount of animals to be able to hunt. So,
Yeah. And my dad's land is 75 acres, I think. So it's pretty big. It's pretty fun. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we hunt grouse there all the time, and there's a lot of black bears. I'm pretty sure if we wanted to, we could hunt moose there. But I mean, being in a draw to get your moose license whenever we can, we just go out where we have the more chances to see anything. But if it came down to it and it was really like a survival situation, I'm pretty sure that 75 acres would be enough. But I have 100 acres in my mind, so yeah, round number, I guess.
The 100 acres, if you think about it too, that's a very historic number, right? Because
Yeah.
excuse me, a lot of parcels were that. I think this is a tough one because I think there's a lot of variables to it. If you have the time to do like what Remy's saying, where you could harvest the lumber and convert it into, you have the time to clear and do all that stuff, then yeah, absolutely, right? But at the same time, you can grow a lot of food in a very small area.
Yeah.
So like even a half an acre, it's amazing if you use it right, how much you can actually grow. So I guess it kind of depends. If you're very plant-based, plant-orientated, i.e. you're going to grow a lot of annual gardens and probably have like berry bushes and that sort of stuff, I think you'd be amazed at how small of an area you can actually grow a substantial amount of food in.
Yeah.
But you're always going to need, I'm going to say it this way because I know we all do, but even if you didn't eat meat, you're still going to need more than what that can do for you. So
Right.
probably in a modern context where you're not completely independent, 10 acres is probably a good number, but it also depends on what that 10 acres is, right? If it's 10 acres of really good pasture, then you're kind of laughing, but then you might not use it for X use, right? You might not convert that into orchard if it's really good pasture. Or if you're 10 acres of maple syrup or sugar maple bush, that's great because the amount of that product you can produce is astronomical. But so I think it's a tough one because it really depends on your parcel.
Yeah.
And that's where the 100 acres gives you the buffer, because if you've got 100 acres, you've probably got some diversity.
You got it all.
Yeah.
I think he touched on a big portion of it. It's not really how many acres, but the placement. Just like in real estate, it's placement. Because where we are now, I still have I still have 9 acres, but I'm surrounded by tons of crown land, so I can hunt all over.
Yeah.
I have many neighbors who are vegan, so I can hunt on their land. However, I'm also learning tons about plants and edible plants that you can do, gardening, things like that. I know Angie's learned tons since she's been up here, and she's also contributed. So it's I would say better placement, because like Chris said, you could have 10 acres of sugar bush, but do you have water? Do you have good soil for planting? Do you need to cut all this down? If you have the 100 acres, it does, like you said, give you that buffer. So you could have several different types. But what if 50 acres of that 100 acres is all swamp? So I would say it's quality over quantity for sure. And placement, definitely placement. So like we have tons of water around us here, so water is not a big issue. On our last little 3 acres that we were working on, we didn't hardly have any soil, and any soil, like gardening soil that we could access, it was inaccessible through some parts of the year because it was downhill, buried in snow, and then when it thawed out, it was muddy for a good portion of the early growing season. So I would say it's quantity or quality over quantity for sure.
I'd probably say too, to add to that, the smaller area you have, I mean, it always usually ends up being more intensive, but the better you have, it's just going to sound bad, the better you have to manage what you do with it, because you have
Yes.
less. So you're thinking about, like, I know people that, they are literally in town with a very small backyard.
Mhm.
And although it's not common, you can still grow a lot in that space.
Oh yeah.
But you really have to think about it. Whereas on the flip side, if you've, like, even us with the 38 acres, we have parts of the property, we'll never, quote unquote, develop. We're never going to use it. There's other benefits to it, but we just know it's like, nope, that area is just never getting used. We don't have to maximize, squeeze every ounce of productivity out of
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
We have that luxury.
I want to say we have maybe acre and a half in front of the house where we don't touch. That's our sound buffer for the road. We've got wild orchids that grow up in there. We've seen tons of grouse that use that area as well. So it's one of those things that, it's nice just to have that kind of nature and leave it be as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that goes into the hunting, foraging type thing too, right? Because totally different topic to segue for a second, but hunting and foraging is great because you're not responsible for looking after it, right? With plants and animals, when you're raising them, you have to look after it. You have to keep it going. You have to hunting and foraging. You don't have to do that, but that resource is bigger than like deer, like you were saying. They're using things at a landscape scale, which is way beyond even 100 acres, right? And that's where then you get into competition with other people for resources, and it just snowballs from there.
So basically what you guys are saying is like half acre up to 100 acres is good.
Depends if you're looking for, it depends if you're looking for quality over diversity, I guess.
And I think, again, it touches on what you want to do. If you're not worried about your own lumber, if you don't hunt, if you're doing some intensive gardening because maybe you're vegan or vegetarian and you're not raising chickens or rabbits or pigs, then you can do with probably a smaller property.
You're right too, because I mean, if you don't have cows, like cows will take up a huge amount of space. But if you just have rabbits and you're just gardening, then maybe an acre is enough.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of goes back to the chickens versus the sheep discussion that I was kind of going into. The sheep are great, but they take a lot more space. You get a lot back from them, but then it's amazing how many pounds, and I'll say it that way, how many pounds of vegetable matter, consumable vegetable matter, you can produce in a very small space. So it's all relative to, like you say, what it is. I haven't been completely following the chat. I don't know if anybody's...
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with everybody in the chat. And if I've missed anybody, welcome. Thank you so much. I've been trying to comment on a few of everybody's comments. But if you have specific questions or that for anybody, I guess just put it in capitals. That might be the best way for us to notice it. Or tag one of the members in the chat. And I think we're all online and can see anything anyway. So for making extra money on a homestead, would you guys ever consider doing a farm stand on your property? Is that something that appeals to you? Do you think it's a good idea? Is it something you'd run with?
If I was able to, go ahead.
It's my time lag because I'm on the satellite.
No problem.
I know we've put out signs for our eggs, and now that we're on more of a main drag ish, we'll probably get a little bit more, you know, access from that. The people will stop in a little bit more from that, but for produce, we haven't. I'm trying to get to the point similar to Chris and Steph, where we've stacked up enough that we have excess to sustain us. So I have that buffer, and then we can move from there to selling the extra. And we just haven't quite made it to that point yet. But as for a stand, heck yeah. I mean, that's just another avenue of the land, providing for us. So now it's providing income as well as the animals, as well as, any furs like Chris is doing with the rabbit furs. As many avenues of income as you can get when you're homesteading. I think that's key, as long as you can afford the time for it.
Yep, definitely.
Would you be worried about your privacy or anything like that?
I have a unique, I mean, I say unique, but it's not totally unique. It's just different outlook on privacy. Being a prior service, like, I mean, once you've been in an 8-man shower, you kind of lose the aspect of privacy. So privacy, for me, it's never been a big issue. I love entertaining, and I love people dropping in. Although it can be an issue because I get much less done when people keep dropping in and my work gets interrupted through the day. But I love it. I love the interaction of people, coming by. I love talking to people. I love hearing different stories, life stories. Life stories are great for me. I love hearing whatever adventure somebody's been on. And my dad especially, he's like done everything and been everywhere. It's kind of crazy. So, and then, double down with, I have friends all over the world, and my one buddy, he's a meteorologist, and I think he's taking a job in the South Pole, and for like 3 or 6 months. So he collects going to different continents, like most people collect with baseball cards. So
that's like the only job you can be wrong all the time and still never get fired.
Well, he actually earns his living being an air traffic controller, but he knows a lot about those areas. So it's
and
really
who was it?
interesting.
Was it Robin Williams or another one that said meteorologist? They just have to come on TV or come on the news and say, "Yeah, no meteors tonight. We're all good."
Today there will be weather.
A slight chance of rain.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. To answer your question, family of 7, it's tough. I wish I could. I mean, I had some extra eggs for a while, but I had a couple of regular customers that would come over and buy the extra eggs I had. I guess in a perfect world, every kid would do their part and help around the house. They're not interested in it, so I can't force them. But I mean, if I had extra veggies, if I had extra eggs or whatever, of course I would do a stand in front of my house. And like Mike said, I don't have any privacy. I mean, I'll go dance naked in the middle of the street. I don't care. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. I'm here on YouTube showing my life to everyone in the world who wants to see it. So even if they come over on my place, it's no different than what I'm already showing everyone. So yeah.
I think that's a good point about the privacy part, right? Like all 4 of us, basically here it is. So we're probably all more predisposed to not shy away from that too much. But I can definitely see how pending. It's like some people don't like the interaction, so totally get that. Short answer would be, would we consider it? Yes. Long answer would be, this is just an opinion, but I it's good to have ways to bring in some extra income, but it's a slippery slope because, and I'm going to say just for where we are, it's hard to take it to that point that it actually is covering your homesteading costs without turning it into a full-time business. Which, if you turn it into a full-time business, just in the climate the way it is where we live, then you're specializing. And once you specialize, then you lose all the benefit of all that diversity. So it's kind of, that's why I say it's a slippery slope. And I think, the themes come out here quite a bit, especially for gardening, to grow and if you have extra, to put that aside at the end of the driveway, kind of is a no-brainer. But it's also real, like, and it's been said here, it takes a lot to feed a family, and the more people you have, the more it takes. So it's hard. Like, I've talked to people that I've never market gardened. I will say that right out there in case anybody in the chat has. And we're obviously not in an area where we can do things like, sell raw milk or sell meat from farm gate or that sort of thing. Like, those are total game changers if you're allowed to do those wherever you are. We can't do those, and that's fine. But where's I going with this thought? Where's I go? I had a really good point. Where did I lose my train of thought? It'll come back to me.
So, I know this so much.
Specializing,
It's so familiar.
getting too big for a commercial farm.
Yes. So I'm not a market gardener, but I've talked to quite a few people who have. And a lot of the generalization here, a lot of the vegetables that are really good for your own benefit, i.e. something like squash, they're easy to grow and they produce an amazing amount of pounds of food, right? Or potatoes, or these things that are, or tomatoes even, that are kind of, I'm going to say, easier and give you a lot back. They don't sell well. So you end up stuck in these cycles where people want the slightly finickier stuff, like greens, for example, sell well. Well, greens are more labor intensive. They're great, but it's a lot more time, effort, work, and you get into that cycle when you're trying to sell, you're going to have waste because you're not going to sell it all. And that's a big shift from having, a few extra squash and putting them at the end of the driveway, selling them for a little bit or however you want to do it. And if they don't go, it's still a waste, but it's not a big deal, versus having, I'm getting ready to go to the market garden or open up my stand at the end for the weekend and have all this lettuce that's taken me a month to grow and not sell it. Yeah. I think that's where it's tough to explain it, but there's a slippery slope there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've only ever sold some eggs here, and it was just like neighbors that came by and they knew that we had eggs and stuff like that. And it was to the point where we always just had a basket full on our counter, because they'd last for a couple of weeks, and so we'd go through what we needed, and then the ones that were shifted over and needed to be used, if they didn't sell right away, we'd like pickle them or something like that. We always tried to make sure that they were used, or we'd go into a baking session and start baking a bunch of what have you. So it wasn't a lot of waste, and I found that it was just enough income from it, not to sustain the homestead, but to pay for all the feed for the chickens. Mm-hmm. And so it was able to sustain the chickens, and which gave me free food from the chickens. So, I mean, it kind of balanced some things out. I can see what you're saying, though, with the greens and the gardening. That would take a lot more effort.
Yeah.
It's you've got that temptation, like exactly how you described it there. I'm going to use the term. It's like, that's an old-timey way of doing it, because you've got chickens. You're going to have times of the year where you're going to have extra. That's kind of a given, right? They're going to lay more, mm-hmm. especially in the spring. You kind of end up knowing what you want or need and how you can drag that out for the year, whether it's baking or preserving it, whatever. And then you still have the extra. But then if you start chasing, like, the slippery slope is going, well, I made, this much off the extra. If I just produce a little bit more, I can make this much more. And then the next year, if I just do a little bit more, and that's kind of the start of a perpetual growth business, which those are hard. I'm just going to say it that way.
Yeah.
To do what you guys are doing, like that should be an option for all of it. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're able to do that with eggs, which is great. We can do it with produce, which is great. But you could argue could be broader. We just aren't allowed to do it where we are.
Yeah. For us, when we started doing the eggs, we had a limited amount. So we stuck them out, had people come in and grab them. And then it's like, oh, we got more people coming. We don't have enough. So let's get a few more chickens. Well, you get to the point where you either have too much, so the fridge is filling up with eggs, and you either have to start eating a lot of eggs, or you have to somehow start selling a lot more eggs. And then you also run into the problem of now too many people come, and now you're selling those eggs and you're running out of eggs again. Now, do you buy more chickens because you had that problem before of too many eggs? So
Yeah.
And it's just kind of too much, too little, too much, too little.
A vicious circle.
Yeah. Exactly. I think for us, we'd be interested in doing it. We built the one car shelter to house the vehicles when basically we were renting from Bridget's sister, and her sister lived here. So we had 3 vehicles. We had the garage, but in the garage, we had the tractor, the ATV, the snowmobile. So I decided I'm going to build a car shelter to basically shelter a couple more vehicles. Now that it's just the 2 of us and our property, now I'm thinking, it would be nice maybe to close in that car shelter, maybe use it kind of as our own farm stand in the summer, spring, summer, fall, and display some of Bridget's woven stuff in there, and maybe offer some eggs, some chives, some herbs, that kind of stuff, maybe some honey. But again, it's like, okay, so how often are we going to be there and be able to man that, both with our full-time jobs, are we going to be able to deal with people coming in and look after them properly, explain the stuff properly? It's tough.
I think,
and again, we don't want to go big. We don't want to, start having the government come in and us paying more taxes than we need to. So,
Now, I've seen a couple people, and I know that we've been able to kind of do it a little bit, where there was one guy I picked up honey from all the time, and he just had, it was on the honor system, so you do have a little bit of, something to deal with, but he would just have his little cabinet up, and he had the prices on it. I mean, all the locals that utilized it would come in. They just drop off the cash. It was $5 a jar or what have you, and you'd pick it up and go. If you could
we
do
did our
things like
eggs that way on the honor system and never had an issue.
It's really amazing in rural communities where you really don't have those issues. No, everybody is.
Well, that's the nice thing about it staying kind of small, right? Like you're selling to a very small community versus trying to get bigger.
Yeah.
So if what you have to offer stays small, then it feels bad when you're turning people away, going, well, I don't have any more, or don't have any more eggs, or whatever it is. But it's kind of like that's just the way it is. And then you can run it that way. But if you start trying to chase the growth,
and that's the problem too, is that if you're starting out, I think, and you're trying to sell eggs or trying to sell some other products, and you're running out, you're actually going to turn people off. and you're not going to get that growth because the people just aren't going to come back because you don't have it. Whereas at a certain point, you actually need to get to that level where people want and need that stuff. So they're going to be the first ones there. They're going to be showing up because they know, say Saturday morning at 8:00, that's when you're sticking out the fresh bread and the eggs and the chives, and they'll be there to grab it.
Yeah.
So you have loyal customers nonstop compared to, say, a farm stand at the end of the driveway that's self-serve where every now and then you stick stuff out.
Yeah. I think that comes into play with diversity. So if you can, like if you had your 100 acres, like Remy said, and you were able to log some of it through the year and then, cut and split it. Well, now through the winter times, you can sell like a cord of wood for $350, $400. And so that could push you through the winter. Whereas during the summer, you have more egg. During spring, you have more eggs, so you can sell more eggs. During the summer, you can sell more of the greens and vegetables. So you have something for different seasons of the year that kind of carry you through. You can also diversify into something like dog breeding, if you can get into something like that, which keeps you more on the homestead. And if you can make a decent enough, like 20 or 30,000 off of that, that might be able just enough to pay for the homestead itself, and then everything else just kind of floats you through. So it's a matter of finding the niche for your area, I think, and trying to get everything to pay for itself or work and earn its own keep on the farm, right?
Yeah.
It's a good balancing act. It really is.
Sorry, guys. I don't know if you guys had internet problems there, but I was still connected to the office at work, so I got multiple internet running. So I just disconnected from work, and we should be okay.
It was all right on my end.
Good.
Didn't notice
I
anything.
didn't see anything wrong here.
Okay. Here's one for you. If you could learn a new skill or develop a skill you already have to improve on it, what skill would you like to have? What skill would you, if you had the time or the money or something to go out right now and learn a new skill for your homestead, what would you like to do?
I'd like to be able to build stuff. I can't even put up a bedroom door. I screwed it up. I had to go back to the store to get another one. So yeah, my carpentry skills are zero. So I guess that would be it. Like I see like the guy that came over to do my renovations. I mean, the guy is capable of doing the plumber stuff. He's capable of doing the electricity. He's able to build pretty much anything he wants. So I guess that would be it. I mean, to be sustainable in your homestead, you need to be able to take care of all the problems, and that's one of the skills that maybe I don't have. I have, how can I say that? I don't have the skills to do it myself. I have the skills to find the right people to do it, to help me do it for me. Right now I have to pay a guy, but I mean, if it was really down to it, I mean, I could call my dad, I could call a friend. I have that community around me that could help me. But I mean, people don't want to work for free, and even if they say that they'll do it because they're my friends, I prefer paying for someone to do it professionally than take a friend's time, because as we all discussed earlier, time is precious for everyone. So if I could do all that stuff by myself, it'd be great. And I'm sure if my girlfriend's listening, she would agree with me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that, because when I first moved up here, I understood how to build things. So I was proficient with theory, so to say. But since I've been up here, I just dive right in. Like I'll build something, not like it, tear it apart, build it again. And I picked up jobs with carpenters and construction up here. So I built a couple log cabins and started doing things like that. So I learned more along the way. My dad was an electrician, so I know enough to run my own electrical, fix things like that. I was a satellite tech, so I'm good in a lot of different, if it comes to fixing something, I can break it till I fix it again. Gardening, I've left to my wife. So my wife's great at gardening. She loves it. She has a passion for it. And I'm happy with that because it's one less thing that I have to learn how to do. And so I focus my energies towards maintenance and building and like maintaining and things like that around the property. And she focuses more on health issues, keeping all the animals healthy. She's great with gardening and things like that. So as a team, we really work well together because she's strong where I'm weak, and I'm strong where she's weak. And so we teach each other and we learn all the time. I didn't know how to run a backhoe or really a tractor. Like, have I done it before? Kinda, but I just bought a backhoe and I'm like, how hard can it be? So I just get out there and start doing it until I figure it out. If I had any real trick to learn, it would be maybe to be able to make great money on the internet or something so that I could focus more of my time just staying home or be productive at night when I can't go out and work on the farm or something like that. My grandfather taught me how to hunt when I was a kid. I can track a little bit. I know some things about tracking. I know a little bit about everything, but not a great deal about one thing in particular. So I find that to be very helpful out here. And then like going into any particular situation, knowing that I know nothing, because you don't know what you don't know. And so going into a situation thinking you know exactly what you got to do and not taking anybody else's input it's a recipe for disaster. And I've seen that in many, many people, friends of mine in particular, where they go in and they're just like, well, I know what I'm doing. It could be done a little bit better. You never know where, inspiration can come from. You never know where that piece of information that you didn't even know you needed to make something just fit or just work perfect. You never know. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I would have to say that I'd need to know a little bit more about everything.
I'd like to know a lot more about everything.
I'm kind of with
I've always
Vanessa
wanted to
Kitty,
do.
the welding
Tandy.
and metal fabrication. That for me would be huge. I'm not too bad with carpentry. I spent a lot of time on farms, so I've learned how to kind of be a jack of all trades on a lot of stuff. But welding and metal fabrication would be one that I'd love to know a lot more about and be able to do more effectively. To be able to fix gates, fix hinges, build some of my own stuff for the tractor and that kind of thing. It would just, I think, be so helpful for me around the homestead.
Yeah. Nice.
That's a good one. Well, they're all good ones. I think mine is kind of the sum of all of that, but sort of specialized to the I don't know very much. I'm going to call it like the alternative energy type stuff, whether it's solar, wind,
Yeah.
Like we were talking about with water, there are ways aside from a jet pump to get water from your well to your house. It's like things like that, because those are, it's like redundant systems. Redundant systems are
Right,
redundancy
right.
is great when it's a necessity. So like the big one's water, right?
Yep.
We don't have a problem with water as long as we have power. I'd love to figure out an alternative, and it's just getting immersed in that. Getting immersed in that enough to, like you said, even know what to look for, where to start, how to. That's hard because the skills there is transferableness between it, but there's a lot of very specialized stuff, and I know that's general because it could be putting up a wind turbine or put solar panels or they're very different, but it's still, they all have their own unique things about them.
And I don't know if you guys are like me, but like when I start looking into solar options and wind options, and people start using amps and watts and, you know, the loading power and starting power and running amps and kilowatts and that kind of stuff, my eyes start glazing over and I kind of lose it. I'm like, okay, so you want me to add up all the appliances that I have in my house, how much energy it takes to start them, how much energy it takes to run them, and then I got to build a system based on that. Am I building it in amps or watts or kilowatts? Or does that, if I'm buying a wind generator, is it kilowatts per month or day or year? Or somebody help me.
Well, you could do it like we did and reverse engineer it and just start off with a cabin where nothing works and then slowly start putting it together.
More stuff to
just start adding on and see what.
That's essentially where we learned. And I got lucky too because my neighbor installs like solar systems and stuff. And so I was able to just tap into his knowledge and start learning. Do I know enough to get by? Barely. But I know enough to try and hodgepodge some things and get them to work, and it's been able to get me by so far. But there's been many a nights where I called them up and like, buddy, something ain't working. I don't know what's going on. Can you come over? So community is key, buddy, especially out in the boonies.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. I've run into people have asked me, because I mean, when I moved out here, I had somebody tell me, oh, you know what? You're never going to fit in. You're always going to be the outsider. And I'm like, well, I've kind of always been the outsider. So, oh, well. And so I went for it. But it always depends on your attitude. Like if you were the type of person where you had bad neighbors where you were, you might have bad neighbors where you go. You never know. Like it's just, you have to have a good enough attitude to get along with people and really like accept people for who they are, their differences and their strengths and weaknesses combined, and then try and work off of that.
Yeah, but there are some exceptions.
I'm going to go off on a tangent here with that one, because for me, I think, I don't know, did y'all watch the Law of Attraction, the movie, that whole thing? No?
I don't
It's great because I kind of feel that people attract into their lives certain stuff, the negative, the positive, depending on what you think about, depending on what you focus on. So, you know, if you're focused on, you got crappy neighbors, moving ain't going to help you because you're putting that energy out into the world. And chances are you move next door to someone else, they're going to be crappy too, because you've got that energy, just such a high vibration.
Yeah. I've also learned that if you can roll with things, like if you can just accept and embrace the whole concept of it is what it is, I can't change certain things, and so I have to accept those and move on with what I can. If you can embrace that whole philosophy in your life, things change and start becoming easier because you're not trying to fight against things you can't change. You're just accepting them and trying to incorporate them into it and roll with it and move on.
Yeah. That's something.
However, as I get older, what I begin to realize too is I understand those old guys that sitting on the front porch screaming at kids to get off the front lawn.
Oh yeah.
Getting older, getting wiser.
Chris, what were you gonna?
No, what was I going to say?
Sorry.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that's a really good point, and I think that learning to accept things, that's a piece if you're homesteading, and it doesn't matter how you're doing it. All the things that come along with homesteading, you learn that skill because no matter how much you think something out, research it, you do it for how much you can do it for X number of years and still learn something new in the 10th year you've been doing it, right? So you kind of when you first start, you don't really think that way. It's like, oh, it's not working, it's not this, whatever, and then you get like 10 years in and going, that's not a big deal. It'll work itself out. It'll whatever. So it trains you for that over time.
And I guess what I could add to what Mike was saying is you got to accept what you can't change. I mean, everything that you have, not the power to change, but if there's anything you can do, you as homesteaders, we always find solutions to all the problems. There is no problem that doesn't have a solution. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a problem. So, you go out there, you fix the problem.
Government.
Yeah. Well, that's something that we as individual, we cannot change. I mean, we can vote for someone else at the next elections, but it doesn't mean that it's going to change anything. But
we can't change.
We can change the way we feel about it.
But we can do things to lessen dependency, which is the whole point of this, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's like a little drop in a drop of water, a raindrop in a lake. It doesn't change the lake, but when you have thousands and millions of those, it changes it. So, yeah, analogy, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the way I've been trying to raise my kids and to move forward from now on. Like, I mean, I can't control the fact that my neighbor filed a complaint against me, but from here, what do? I have a problem. I need to find a solution. I have a couple of solutions in mind. Which one's going to work best for me? I don't know, but I'm going to try to find whatever I can do.
Well, and that goes right back to the question about the livestock question. Which do you think's the best or the perfect, however you want to phrase that? There isn't a one answer fits all, right? Because I said chickens, but I know, Remy, you've got quail now.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't have quails. I don't have quails.
I thought you did. Anyways, we'll just pretend you do for a moment.
There's another option.
But there's another option, right? It's like the egg thing. It may not be an option that fits everybody, but it's there are, like you said, there is a solution. And I swore I saw a video from you.
Wrong person. I had smaller breed of chickens for a while, but no quails.
All right, I've got a bunch more questions, but we're running out of time, I think. But I have one that, like the other questions we've kind of touched on, but this one we haven't. So I want to know, you guys, what tool or equipment would you love to have that you don't? And what tool do you have that's your favorite? Mike's like, my hoe.
I love my backhoe. I really do. I love my backhoe for what it is. I wish it was 4-wheel drive. If it had been 4x4, I think I'd never get rid of it. But I've gotten to the point where on the very top of my driveway, I drive all the way up and I have to drive backwards because I start sliding at the top. And so I'll use the front bucket to push myself up and just get that last little 10 feet. And then I'll plow the rest of my driveway and then do it again. So if I had anything to choose, it would probably be for the future after I get all the land contoured the way I want. I'll get rid of the backhoe, I think, and go for a 4x4 tractor, because what I find I use more often are the forks to pick up structures that I've built, logs that I've gotten cut down, things like that, and moving those around. And I probably won't be digging as much in the future after I get the homestead kind of contoured the way I want it. So I would say something 4x4 tractor with a bucket front end, maybe something on the back end of it. But yeah, 4x4 tractors will end up going.
I guess if I could get anything I want, I want a tractor, something like Darren has. As long as I can plow my driveway and maybe till my garden at the end of the season, that's pretty much all I would need. As for my favorite tool at the moment, I mean, I don't really have anything specific. I mean, the one I use the most is my shovel, so nothing special about that.
Sometimes the simplest tools are the best ones. So
Yeah.
I
because you know
guess.
exactly what to expect, and
Yeah,
if it's broken, it's not. It's just you can look at it and say it's broken.
yeah.
If the
And I
shovel's
mean,
broken,
it's something like a shovel too. It's hard to do anything on a homestead without a shovel.
Yeah, that's probably the most useful one I have. I mean, I'm glad last year I was able, like, I bought a sawzall, I bought like a battery drill. It allowed me to work a little bit with like old pallets around the house and do some little projects. Um, Beside that, I mean, everything is basically about garden. I mean, I can probably talk about my 3006. I don't know if that counts in there. I guess I'm glad I have my gun. Um, my gauge 12 also. I mean, I go grouse hunting. I don't want to miss, so I shoot with the 12. Beside that, I don't really have much anything special going on here as of tools.
I think
What
for
about you,
me,
Darren? Oh, sorry.
yeah, you go first,
For me,
but we don't forget you.
I think
I should stop.
I think if I could have something, it would probably be a mill. I I I think a mill for myself right now would be really handy to be able to, we want to do the goat shelters in the spring. We want to build our own barn. I want to try and finish the roof on the greenhouse. Uh, there's stuff like that. So we'll probably try and build another cow shelter. So for me, a mill would probably be, you know, the thing that I desire most. For the most useful tool, I don't know. It'd be a toss up between like a chainsaw, the shovel,
Mm.
and I want to say my new hit, the bale spear on the tractor. That thing's awesome. But maybe chainsaw. I, I'd have a hard time doing stuff that I've done around here without the chainsaw.
Good tool.
Yeah.
No, that's a definitely good one. I think the one tool I'd like to get would be a broad fork, because we've been making new gardens, so I like the tiller. Just we have the little walk behind one. It works well for breaking stuff up. I know there's different trains of thoughts on that, but I'd like to try the broad fork because our soil, I think, would work for it with a little bit of work. So that's the tool I'd like to get. I kind of have two. They're very different that I really like. The one is kind of indispensable, the impact drill.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, because that gets used for everything. Like, it's a lifesaver for
That
so many
is a good point. We just got a set. It was like regular drill and then the impact, the battery. And it's like, without realizing it till you said it, it's something that, we're always going next door to Bridget's sister to Boro until I got that. Because I'm not dragging the generator out around the place to run my electric drill.
No, exactly. And there's so many things that you end up using it for.
Yeah.
But the other tool that I really like, because it's coming in handy, although it sits there most of the year and doesn't get used, is our the fruit press, the apple press.
Oh yeah, I love that tool.
There's a lot you can do with it.
That's something I should have.
They're definitely worth it. That's actually, I'm going to say it. This goes back to our tractor experiences. One of the reasons we got rid of the tractor was because we got rid of the cows. And so the sheep, you can handle the bales and stuff. You don't need it, but with the cows, we would have. So we got rid of the cows. But the other thing was we would have had to build it its own barn, essentially.
Right.
And so it was kind of one of those things when we couldn't quite justify the work for us of it. It was like, well, I don't want to have to build it a barn, which is totally just our situation. But the apple presses, like we have them in one half of the woodshed right now, and that's actually something. It would be a much smaller little shed, but it's like that actually makes sense to build a roof structure over where you just kind of leave it there, because then you don't lose pieces. And yeah, it's all on how useful it is, I guess, to you.
Yeah, so I think most of the other questions we've covered. One thing, I know you're all kind of like, I want to say like movie buffs and that kind of thing. Now, are we all in agreement that Han Solo shot first?
Of course he did. And he was right to do so.
And how were your feelings on the original? Was what's his name, Spielberg, wrong to edit the originals?
You know what? I stand by the original 3 are the best out of all of them. Now, I like some things about the new ones. For instance, there was a big argument when Mark Hamill and a few of the other actors had argued with Steven Spielberg about the lightsaber dueling. And they were trying to say that, if they could switch hands, if they could throw it back and forth, and something a little more like they do nowadays. And Steven Spielberg died on that hill where he was just like, no, you have to hold it with 2 hands. That's just how it is. And so that's why the originals are that way. So I do like the versatility and the fight scenes for the new ones. But as storylines go, I think they're just trying to rehash the old story and make it for a new generation.
Okay, so Mike,
although-
you just like really geeked out on me there.
All good, all good.
My first movie I ever went to with my dad was Return of the Jedi, so I kind of have a vested interest in it.
That's a good first movie to go to see in the theaters.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my thing with the I think I do agree. The originals, I think part of it is, especially the first one, there was nothing like it.
No,
Right?
no,
And
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
because they were constrained. Like the effects that they used were out of this world for the time, but they were still bound within something that seemed real. Like it's like all the droids and everything. Like you could kind of imagine that sitting in the garage
Yep.
or something, right? Like the technology wasn't there to do it, but now CGI's got some good points, but you have to be careful with it, right? Because it takes the reality out of it. And I think it goes way beyond just the Star Wars franchise. Like a lot of movies are that way, where it's amazing in one sense what you can do, what you can imagine, and what you can create in a virtual world. And this has probably deeper connotations too. But at the same time, you lose that grounding that makes it feel real.
Yeah, I'm a
Which
big
does go
Marvel
into,
fan
like,
myself,
lightsaber.
and
Oh, sorry.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say I'm a big Marvel fan myself, and CGI is, it's right up there in those movies. You can't watch any Marvel movie without having CGI. So it's
For
the new
me,
technology, I guess.
for me, I think that's another reason why I like the original Star Wars, is because there was no CGI. I start watching some of these new movies with the CGI, and the superheroes move faster than you can actually see. So if, a fight scene and they're flipping and spinning and shooting and swinging, you actually don't know what has just happened. You can't tell the move that they actually made because it's too fast. And to me, that doesn't make a good. It's just take me back to the
there's too
original
much-
Star Wars, please.
or there's too much going on. It's like an explosion.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a car fire or something, right? It isn't a big like boom billow out for 10 minutes. It's kind of a and it's quick, and I think that's part of it too, right? You're exaggerating. It's exaggerating things, like you say, they're slower or faster or bigger than it actually would be, and then people have no idea what the reality would be.
How, and this is really taking it back to movies. So, how many of you have seen the old version or are familiar with Dune?
No.
Doom?
Okay. Yep.
Dune? Like Dune.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Dune. They've recently done a new version of it,
yeah.
and it's pretty good. So
I
I recently came across
haven't seen the original,
and I think it was the writer of the originals or something. So the Matrix, or no, it starts off with the Terminator. So the Terminator is where AI comes in and starts taking over, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward, that's the first segment of the story. Fast forward like 1,000 years, and then you have the Matrix. And then fast forward 1,000 years after that, or however long it is, and you have Dune. And so in Terminator, the AI comes into existence, takes over, and fights against humanity. In Matrix, we have the storyline continuing where we lost and the machines won, and we're working against fighting that. You move forward, which is weird because Dune came out in, I think, the early 80s or the 70s. And the storyline in Dune is there's no AI. Humanity has gotten rid of artificial intelligence, and all machines are just machines. And so they've moved over to a whole different like economy of technology and things. So there's no such thing as AI because they learned from the past where they'll take over and they're going to kill us all.
Mike, did I already mention you just geeked out?
Yeah, I like stories.
All good. All good.
So I do actually have a question. You guys have all seen Monty Python, right?
No, I have not.
You have not?
No.
My shirt is kind of a combination of Star Wars. I don't know if you can read it. Star Wars and Monty Python. Ministry of Silly Walks.
Silly Walks? Nice. So my question would be is what is the airspeed velocity of a swallow?
Is that an African swallow or a European one? Okay, I don't know.
I'll stick to my beer.
That's my great. Ram,
best life of any Monty
you
Python.
definitely need to watch Quest for the Holy Grail. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, my favorite part of that is the skit with the was it the holy hand grenade? Oh, that's the best.
This thy holy hand grenade, and see to it that it flies swiftly to thine enemy, and blow or fly swiftly to its course, and blow thine enemy to smithereens.
Thou shalt count to 3, not 4, not 5.
And 6 being right out or something.
Yeah. Thou shalt not count to 2 unless they are proceeding to 3. One of my favorite parts now that I've gotten the boys and Bridget to watch it is when they get up to the French castle, and it's like, "Oh, you silly kniggets!" Like, oh man, I'm just dying. Yeah. No, thank you. He's already got to grill. It's quite nice. Thank you.
Now go away, I shall taunt you.
Go away, I shall taunt you for a second time. You English knigget. Oh, yeah. Any other good movies?
Oh, so many.
Boy.
Well, I've seen The Last Matrix lately. It was pretty good.
And?
I loved it. It's
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it all. Like, I don't want to give any
I've seen
spoilers
them all,
out
but
there.
the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's whatever you're thinking is going to happen. That's not what's going to happen. It's anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say that it's as good as the first three ones, because I mean, especially the first one, it came out and blew like everybody's imagination. Like, it was just something else. The second and the third one were like a good follow-up to the first one. And now everything is happening. It's 80 years later, and the computer system has evolved, like the Matrix has evolved, and everything is just wow.
See, I liked where they left it off before, and I think that this was more of a money grab, honestly, because
Yeah.
I understand they did a continuation, and it does give some things that this is a likely story arc that could have happened from this point, but I just think that there wasn't anything like you said, Matrix, when it came out, the storyline itself just was like mind blowing. Nothing like it had existed before, and it was very like groundbreaking, and it was awesome because of that. So I find that this one is just like, it's like that they made a sequel. You know what I mean? And the sequel's never.
Unless their plan is to do some, like the way it ends, we know there's gonna be something else, because it's not over. Like it kind of ends like the first movie, where okay, it could be done that way, but at the same time they can continue and do whatever they want. They could do more. So if they start doing more, and like I think the first three movies went this way, the fourth one was something like this, and then it could go that way and be something entirely different, and it could be awesome. But I just don't like when they do stuff that was already done.
I want to quickly touch on something Diggs Outdoor said there, and it was Pitchy Levash? Quoi? Pitchy Levash?
Yes, Michael. He asked if Keanu Reeves was still in the last movie. Yes, he's still the main actor.
Now, it did go on, so apparently it's going to lose Warner Brothers like $1 million, dude. Or $100 million.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those movies where if you like it, then you're going to be in for it. Yeah, and Keanu shows up, and he just looks. Oh my God! Talk about a new Keanu movie that's like a kickback. He did Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came back, or whatever the newest one was called.
Oh yeah,
and it was so. I felt so bad. These poor actors. I mean,
the original TED Talks.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up, and we'll have a little discussion on who's gonna do the next round table. Hopefully, one of you wants to step up, and or any of our viewers want to step up and do a little round table with a few others, and see what we can get going with this. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I keep saying whenever we do multiple people, it's a whole different environment, a whole different feeling. It's just easier, I guess, especially for me being a French guy. I just have to answer questions. I don't have to think. It's just fun.
Oh, and before we go, I know I promised y'all that I would tell that story of the manscaping because we were talking about it the other night. So if you're ready for it, everyone plug your kids' ears, and anyone under 18, it's bedtime. Night. Bon nuit. Do speedanya. Avida same. So here we go. At the one time, a number of years ago, I was going through a divorce, and another buddy was going through a divorce as well at the same time. So we started hanging out a bit more, and we were both paddling and kayaking and SUPing and that sort of thing. Both outdoorsy types and that sort of thing too. And before things had gone bad, I had actually booked a campsite up in Algonquin, and it was one of those paddle-in sites. So you pack up all your stuff, you paddle in, you're there for a week or a weekend, that sort of thing. So I had a weekend booked, and it wasn't going to be my ex at the time. So I called my buddy up because I knew he was free, and I knew he was a paddler and would enjoy the outdoors as well. He liked drinking too. So he said, yep. So he loaded everything up, and off we go to Algonquin. And we get to the site, and we've got a lot of alcohol with us. And so we're talking about women and, how to get him back in the game and that sort of thing. And we got drunk, the one time, and basically no one's around because it's our own little island. So we both stripped down and jump in the water. Thankfully, we saw the snapping turtle afterwards, or we wouldn't have jumped in the water right then. But as he stripped down, I was looking at him and I was like, dude, you are an ape. Like, what the hell? It's like, okay, if you're going to start dating, you need to start looking after yourself. Like, do a little manscaping, do a little, trimming, that sort of thing. Like, you got to tame some of that hair, that little forest you've got going on everywhere. So skip ahead a few weeks, and we're at another party at his place, and he starts talking to me about the whole manscaping thing. And I had explained it to him multiple times. Well, I thought I had actually explained it to him multiple times of how to actually manscape and, look after yourself. And again, we were drinking at his place, and we got into the kitchen, and we had a bunch of other friends there. And somehow the subject came up, and he was like, it's just not working out. I'm always itchy. It's so much work. It's just so awkward. I'm having trouble doing it. And I'm like, what the hell? It doesn't sound right. It sounds like you're doing something wrong. Like without getting way too personal and way too uncomfortable with this situation, I can only suggest so many things to make you feel better about this situation. So I said, you got to be doing something wrong. You tried to explain it to him again. And he was drinking, and he got all frustrated, and he's like, no, I'm doing it fine. Everything's good. And he walks outside to the fireplace. So a couple of the guys walk out with him, and they're like, start teasing him, start saying, something's not right if you're getting all itchy and he got so frustrated, he whipped down his pants and his underwear right there at the fireplace. And he's like, look, I'm doing it right. Well, he had shaved from the middle of his thighs up to his belly button. He didn't just trim the boys. He trimmed everywhere his shorts and boxers went, from the middle of his thighs up to his belly button. We were like, yep, knew there was a problem. Oh, yeah. I'm like, that's why it took you so long, and you were so itchy, and yeah. Your thighs did not need to be touched. Neither did your belly button.
You have to have good guy friends that you can like just get drunk with and tell these crazy stories with. And that's where you learn half the time when you're 18, when you're out drinking and you learn this stuff and you don't get into the messes. Oh, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Now all the geek part about this live is gone.
Oh,
People were watching and thinking those guys are smart, and now okay, I'm not so sure anymore.
yeah. This was a great live, and then it just kind of went downhill. Yeah. Oh,
You know,
so guys,
something hit me earlier before we close out. No, because Darren said something about one of the things you wanted to learn was you wanted to learn metal crafting better, right?
yeah.
And I was out, so it's one of those things where when I came up here and I started working with this contractor, he asked me, "Well, what do you know?" Like I don't know how to answer that. Like I don't know what I don't know, so I couldn't tell you. And he was excited when I could carry lumber correctly and when I could, use a tape measure, and it's simple stuff. And I'm like, what kind of monkeys are you hiring? But it was one of those things. But just recently, I was outside and we were cutting rebar for the foundation of the house, and the smell hit me of like the metal, right, being like the hot metal, and I say, oh, I forgot that smell. Like it's kind of nostalgic, and I just kept walking, and I didn't think anything of it. So, my buddy, who's the contractor who like is working with me to help build my house, said, What do you mean? I said, well, I used to spot weld bandsaw blades for this feeder company for GM back when I was younger, and it was just like a blip in my life. But I remember learning how to weld, learning how to spot weld, learning like all these little things, and it was he just kind of looked at me, shook his head, says, "What haven't you done?" Like, I don't know. Anything I can get into, I get into. I mean, I don't know. But it's yeah.
It's
Life
great
is an
learning new
adventure.
stuff.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
Get out there with
And ends
somebody
up-
who's just like super into like one thing or another, and they're like really into it, and they like for like a mechanic. I had an uncle of mine who like rebuilds classic cars, and he did that from forever. Like he did that with my dad when they were growing up, and so I would get out there with him and just kind of like try and absorb as much as I could. To this day, I still couldn't tell you half the names of the different parts on a car, but I can get in there and try and figure it out and fix it.
And it's so cool learning it from someone who is at the top of their game. Is
Oh
like,
yeah,
no.
Definitely.
So,
it's
guys,
a joy
I
to
think
be
I'm
around
gonna
you, Master.
call it a night. And what I'm gonna do is I might hang around a bit. I'll probably head over, if you guys don't know, Gray Man Prepping. Mallory from Quebec Homestead is going to be on Gray Man Prepping tonight. Actually,
Okay.
I think I'll stick the link in the. So I might stay up late enough to see that, even though it's already past my bedtime. There's the link for it. So Mallory from Quebec Homesteading is going to be interviewed by Gray Man. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thanks, Mike, Remy, and Chris, for joining me tonight and answering a bunch of these questions. Hopefully we can
pleasure.
do another one of these soon. And
sure.
we'll
I'd
be
love to.
talking to everyone later.
Right
Yes,
on.
definitely. Hopefully, everybody
Yeah.
found it informative and entertaining.
I think at some point we had around 38 or 39 people watching. It's pretty good.
Nice.
That is pretty good.
nice.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think at the peak was about 39.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
Have a great night, everybody.
yeah, you too.